Alrighty, guys. So 5.1b, let me try to zoom that in a little bit here. Okay, sorry. All right, so 5.1b lesson, we are modeling and understanding unit rate. So we talked in 5.1a about ratios. Okay, now we're going to be talking about unit rates. Okay. All right, so it says fill in the missing information for each, then compare the rate tables. Okay, so big numbers in this one. This one I like that I see a 1, but I see fractions too. So pros and cons to both. That's kind of what I'm noticing just looking at both of them. Okay, so if I look at the 60 and the 48, if I do 60 divided by 48, that would end up being 12 goes into those. Yes, 5/4. Okay, so I just took 60 divided by 48 and got 5/4. So that means that if I multiply 48 by 5/4, I get 60. Let's look at that. That's 48 over 1. Okay, the 4 and the 48 cross cancel and leave it 12 times 5, which is 60. Okay, so then if this is a rate table, I would have to be able to use the same process with the 7. So that would be 35/4. 35/4, you could leave it like that. That's kind of hard to understand in miles. Okay, if it makes more sense to make a mixed number out of that, that would be 4, 8, and what would that be? 3/4? Yeah, 8 and 3/4. That's a little bit easier to understand with miles. Okay. All right, now we're going to do the same thing here. This is nicer because this already has a 1. So this gets multiplied by 1 1/4 to get miles. Okay, this we need to multiply by 1 1/4. Okay, well 1 1/4 is 5/4. So we're taking 7 over 1 times 5/4, which is 35/4. Look at that. 35/4, same numbers I'm getting over on this other table. Okay, so this rate table is the same as this rate table. It could be in one table, okay, just different rows in one table. So the ratios of miles per hour are the same in both tables. Sorry, misspelled it. Okay, a unit rate is the comparison of two different quantities, the second of which is 1. Okay, so I cannot emphasize this enough. The second one is a 1. Okay, sometimes kids get the 1 in the wrong spot and they think they're having a unit rate, but the 1 has to be in the second item, the second thing. Okay, so we're going to explore that idea with this example here. It says the table above on the right has a unit rate of 1 1/4 miles per 1 hour. This right here, because the 1 is second, that is a unit rate in miles per hour. All right, let's look at this flower example. A bouquet of flowers is 6 roses and 2 sunflowers. Okay, so this is coming from 5.1a. Okay, so we can think of 2 sunflowers, 2 roses, 2 roses, 2 roses. So hopefully you see that we have a 6 roses to 2 sunflowers relationship, but don't we also have a 3 roses to 1 sunflower relationship? And that is from 5.1a. Okay, so this is a rate. This is a unit rate. Okay, hence the 1 in the second thing on the bottom. Okay. Okay, if we were interested in knowing how many roses there were for every one sunflower, that's called the unit rate of roses to sunflowers. Okay, the unit rate is 3 roses per one sunflower, as we saw here. What if we wanted to know the ratio of sunflowers to one rose? Okay, so we need to have roses. We need to have roses in the denominator this time. So 2 sunflowers for 6 roses. Okay, and the way that that reduces is you get 1 sunflower for 3 roses. Okay, but remember we need a 1 in the denominator, in the bottom, in the second thing. So we would need to divide this by 3 and this by 3. Well, if we divide this by 3, wouldn't we have 1/3 of a sunflower? Okay, so the unit rate is 1/3 of a sunflower per 1 rose. Okay, so unit rates, depending on the units, if you have them this way or this way, there are 2 unit rates that you can give for any situation. Okay. All right, so to fill in the 2 possible unit rates for the situation, we're going to fill in 3 roses for 1 sunflower and 1/3 of a sunflower for 1 rose. Usually one of them makes more sense than the other. Obviously, this one makes more sense because we don't really want to think of cutting the sunflower in thirds, right? All right, so John walks at a constant rate of 8 miles every 3 hours. Answer the following. What is John's rate written as miles and hours? Okay, so we've got 8 miles per 3 hours. That is his rate. That is a rate. Use a bar model to find the unit rate of miles per hour. Okay, so here's one way to do that. Since it has 2 units, we're going to do 8 miles, 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour. So 3 hours in 8 miles. That's one way to show. That's one way to show a model. Okay, so in 1 hour, we'd have to break this up into thirds. So 8 thirds. We'd have to divide it by 3 or take 1/3. Okay, if you'd prefer it, again, as a mixed number, that would be or 2 2/3 miles per 1 hour. All right, and it's okay to make your ratios with a colon. It's okay to make your ratios with a fraction like we focused on last module. I'm sorry, not last module, last lesson in 5.1a. All right, so it says use a bar model to find out how far he can walk in 5 hours. Okay, well, if each hour is 2 2/3 miles, one hour, 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour. Okay, and each of these is 2 2/3. So we can actually think of it like this. 2 2/3 miles, 2 2/3 miles, 2 2/3 miles, 2 2/3 miles, 2 2/3 miles. Now, if you add up all those, you would end up with 13 1/3 miles, okay? Or if you want a shortcut on how to find that, can't we just take 8 thirds 8/3 is 1 hour. Can't we multiply 8/3? Whoops, sorry guys. Sorry about that. So we've got 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour. 2 2/3 goes with each hour. Do 5 times 2 2/3. 5 times 2 2/3. That would be using the model, okay? Or doesn't it make sense that we can just use this unit rate up here? If we have 8/3 miles in 1 hour, wouldn't we do 5 times the 8/3? Okay, so in any way that you look at that, you would end up with 40 thirds. Or that comes out to be 13 1/3 miles. Either one of those. Okay. All right, fill in the following table based on John's average walking rate. Note the row labels. Okay, so this is hours. This is miles. Leave your answers as simplified improper fractions. So if he doesn't have any time, he's not going to go any miles. 1 hour, we already said, is 8/3. 2, if we multiply this by 2, wouldn't that be 16/3? If we multiply 8/3 by 3, wouldn't that be 24/3, which is 8? If we multiply 8/3 by 4, wouldn't that be 32/3? You seeing the pattern? This would be 40/3. This would be 48/3, which is 16. Okay, it said to leave it as improper fractions, so leaving it. But I wanted to just show you it reduces. Some of these reduce. Okay, this jumps from 6 to 10. Don't think that it goes, oh geez, guys, sorry. All right, let me re-explain that since you're now just looking at it. Sorry about that. So if he goes 0 hours, it's 0 miles. Okay, if he goes 1 hour, that's 8/3 of a mile. If he goes 2 hours, we'd multiply this by 2 and get 16/3. If he goes 3 hours, we'd multiply this by 3 and have 24/3, which is 8. Okay, you should be picking up on a pattern here. Notice that this 6 then changes to 10. It's not a 7, so don't just keep adding 8. Okay, notice that we're adding 8 to the numerator every time, but notice that this jumped a bunch. So we're going to have to do 10 times 8/3, which is 80/3. Okay, 20 here would be 160/3. Okay, now H could be anything. Could be 3, could be 50, could be 1,000. Okay, H, we're going to have 8/3 times whatever the H is. That's the formula that got all of those. Okay, so where on the table can you find the unit rate for miles per hour? Right here. Okay, where 1 hour is on the table is the unit rate. 8/3 miles in 1 hour. Okay. Next page. How long would it take John to walk 1 mile? Okay, well, it says write this as a unit rate. So here are the two things that you need to understand for this problem. So we just figured out that 1 hour is 8/3 of a mile. If we want 1 up here, wouldn't we multiply by 3/8, the reciprocal of 8/3? Okay, if we want 1 mile, we need to multiply by 3/8. Well, if we multiply by 3/8 here, we have to multiply by 3/8 here. Okay, so there's your unit rate. Okay, that would be, and remember 1 has to always come second. So 3/8 hours to 1 mile. Okay, it's asking you how long for 1 mile. Unit rate wants the 1 in the second spot. Okay, complete each sentence. The number of miles is equal to 8/3 the number of hours, and the number of hours is equal to 3/8 the number of miles. Okay, this reciprocal, this inverse idea is very, very important coming back from Module 4. Okay, what is the relationship between miles per hour and hours per miles? How might this help you? Okay, I just kind of gave that away, I guess. They are reciprocals. You could find 1 unit rate and then take the reciprocal of it to find the other. All right, write 2 different unit rates for each given situation. Be sure to include units in your unit rate. The sandwich shop uses 24 slices of meat for every 6 sandwiches. Okay, well, there's usually an easier one and a tougher one. Okay, so we've got 24 slices for 6 sandwiches. Okay, now we want to know how much that is for 1 sandwich. Okay, remember this is a rate. Let me write that in pink. This is a rate. This is a unit rate. Okay, so if we're taking a 1/6 of this, we're going to take a 1/6 of this and get 4 slices. Okay, so here's 1 unit rate, and we need to flip this rate upside down. 6 sandwiches over 24 slices. How much for 1 slice? All right, well, to turn this 24 into 1, we need to multiply by 1/24. Which means we need to multiply by 1/24. So that'd be 1/4 of a sandwich. Okay, so this one, let me write that here too. This one I multiplied by 1/6, and I multiplied that by 1/6. Okay, so I hope that you're seeing that reciprocal relationship. 4 slices for 1 sandwich, 1/4 of a sandwich per 1 slice. If you don't see the relationship, then just do them both. Okay, it took 3/4 of a cake to feed 1/3 of the class. So we've got cake over class, 3/4 cake for 1/3 class. We want 1 class. Switch it up again. Cake over class, we want 1 class. To turn this 1/3, so that would be 9/4 cake. Okay, and if you understand the shortcut, you're going to have 4/9 of a class for 1 cake. But if you don't get that, let's flip this blue problem around. 1/3 class for 3/4 of a cake. Okay, we want that to be 1 cake. To get this to be 1, you would need to multiply by 4/3, which means you would need to multiply that by 4/3. So that would be 4/9 of a class. Gets you 1 cake. Alrighty, last page, guys. Each half hour, the temperature of the water rises 1/5 degree. Okay, so we have 1/2 hour over 1/5 degree. We want to make that 1 degree. Okay, the way that we turn 1/5 into 1 is multiply by 5/1. So 5/2 hour. Okay, and 1/5 degree is 1/2 hour. Okay, so we just took this blue rate and flipped it over. And now we need to try to get it as 1 hour. To turn this half into 1, multiply by 2/1. So 2/5 of a degree. Okay, I hope that you're seeing a relationship between this 5/2 hours and 1 degree and 2/5 degree in 1 hour. If you do, you can do half the work, right? Okay, let's look at this one. The ant crawls 2/3 meters every 1/4 minute. So 2/3 meters, 1/4. Be very careful. Meters is M, minutes is min. Okay, to make that a 1 minute, we would need to multiply by 4/1. 4/1. So that'd be 8/3. 8/3 meter. Okay, and the other one, take this original blue and flip-a-roo. 1/4 minute over 2/3 meter. Multiply this by 3/2. Multiply this by 3/2. So that's going to get us 1 meter. That's going to be 3/8. 3/8 minute over 1 meter. Okay, what is the relationship between the two different unit rates? They are inverses. They are inverses of each other. Reciprocals, whatever word you prefer. How can this help you? Okay, we already answered that question, I think on the last page. If you find one unit rate, and you know the shortcut, you can easily find the other. All right, you will not have anything as complicated as this, okay, but I'll go ahead and do these last two. Okay, same thing here. We've got 6.5 miles. Okay, and they want it in per hour. They want miles on the top and hours on the bottom. They do not want both. They're telling you the one way they want it, per 1 hour. Okay, so that is 13/2 miles in 3/4 of an hour, and we want this to be 1 hour. So this needs to get multiplied by 4/3. Okay, this 2 and this 4 can cross cancel and leave you with 26/3 miles. Okay, if you want to make, if you want to make a mixed number, you can, but it's not necessary. Okay, I'll write it in if you want to, or 8 2/3 miles over 1 hour. All right, this guy, 28 days I ate 8.5 pounds of candy. How many pounds per week? Per week is that? Okay, 28 days, are we good that that's 4 weeks? 28 days is 4 weeks. Okay, so I have 8.5 pounds in 4 weeks, and I want to turn it into 1 week. So let me make this a 17/2 pounds in 4 weeks. And I want this to be 1 week. Well, to turn a 4 into a 1, I have to multiply by 1/4. So that would be 17/8 pounds in 1 week. If you want a mixed number out of that, it's 2 1/8 pounds in 1 week. All right, so that's all she wrote for 5.1b. Thanks, guys.